I want you to just take a second and imagine the smell of pine needles, right? The crackle of a campfire, and just that absolute pitch black darkness of the deep woods at midnight.
Oh, yeah. That is the perfect setting for this.
Right. Because you are joining us today for a really fascinating new exploration, and we are heading straight into the heart of a classic piece of Adirondack folklore.
We really are. We're looking at the legend of the Hermit's Lost Gold.
Exactly. It's basically the quintessential campfire story, you know.
It really is. And we are diving into a whole stack of historical source material today to kind of analyze the anatomy of this specific legend.
Yeah, pulling apart all those tangled threads of rumor and documented history and, human psychology.
Which is my favorite part, honestly.
Oh, for sure. So the whole mission of this deep dive is to unpack this tale because it's just this incredible, messy blend of actual history, wild, tall tales, and genuine mystery.
Yeah, and we are going to establish the timeline of this legend, of course, but more importantly, I think we are going to figure out the mechanisms behind it.
Right, like why humans are so deeply, maybe even irrationally, drawn to the idea of lost treasure.
Because every sprawling, larger-than-life mythology, it has to start with a single kernel of truth, right?
It has to, yeah. Something actually happened.
Exactly. And to really understand this one, we have to travel all the way back to the late 1800s.
Which is such a wild time. Setting the scene here is crucial.
It really is. I mean, in the late 19th century, the Adirondacks in upstate New York were just vastly untamed.
Oh, totally. Like this was a seriously unforgiving environment.
Right. We are talking about brutal, sub-zero winters, dense, completely unmapped forests, and an economy that was based entirely on hard labor and bartering.
Yeah, not an easy place to live. And living deep in those woods near a place called Indian Lake was an old trapper.
A hermit, basically.
Yeah, exactly. The ultimate off-the-grid lifestyle, long before anyone, romanticized it on Instagram or whatever.
Right, yeah. He was essentially just a guy trying to survive in a tiny cabin.
Just scraping by.
And the historical sources we have, they paint a very consistent picture of this man.
They really do.
Yeah.
Like he was known throughout the whole region for being exceedingly quiet.
Very quiet and entirely self-sufficient, living this borderline austere lifestyle.
Yeah, he hunted, he trapped, he just kind of minded his own business.
Which, in an era where relying on your community was often a literal matter of life or death, his isolation was super notable.
It definitely stood out. And, well, here is where the spark of the legend actually catches fire.
Right, the inciting incident.
Yeah, because you have this guy who seemingly has absolutely nothing, right? Who lives off bark and whatever he can trap.
Just a subsistence lifestyle.
Exactly. And then he walks into town to gather some basic supplies, and he pays for things with gold coins.
Which is huge. He was seen in possession of these gold coins repeatedly over the years, according to the sources.
Yeah, and to really understand the impact of this, you kind of have to look at the local economy of the time.
You do, yeah. Because the people in these timber and trapping towns, they operated almost entirely on a credit and barter system.
Right. Actual cash was scarce.
Super scarce. And gold. Gold was virtually mythical to these people.
Which immediately just sets the local rumor mill absolutely ablaze.
Oh, I mean, how could it not?
Right. People start whispering, did he stumble upon a secret, unmapped vein of gold out in the mountains?
Or does he have some massive cache of stolen loot buried under his floorboards?
Right, all these wild theories. But I've got to push back a little on the sheer hysteria of this premise. Just playing devil's advocate here.
Okay, go for it.
Because I'm trying to picture this happening today. It would be like a modern-day extreme minimalist.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Someone who lives in a tiny house, owns exactly 3 shirts, and just preaches all day about rejecting capitalism.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine that guy walking into a local grocery store and inexplicably paying for his, organic lentils with solid gold bars.
Okay, that contrast is definitely jarring, I'll give you that. It's hilarious to picture.
It is, but your minimalist analogy misses a pretty crucial piece of the historical context here.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, a modern minimalist, they choose that lifestyle as a philosophy, right?
True, yeah. It's a choice.
But the locals in the 1800s, they viewed the hermit's lifestyle through the lens of pure survival.
Ah, right. It wasn't a trendy choice for them.
Exactly. They just couldn't fathom anyone choosing to freeze in a squalid little cabin if they possessed genuine wealth.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. So to them, the gold wasn't just some weird incongruity. It was an economic impossibility that practically demanded an explanation.
So, was there really a secret vein of gold out there in the woods?
That's the big question.
Or were the locals just projecting their own fantasies of sudden, life-changing wealth onto a guy who just simply wanted to be left alone?
That's a really valid psychological angle.
I mean, maybe he just had a modest inheritance he brought with him from wherever he came from, right?
Yeah, that's highly likely. And to a bunch of hardscrabble 1800s locals, a few shiny coins just look like El Dorado.
I'd say a modest savings is definitely the most probable historical reality here.
Right, just a small stash.
Exactly. He likely had a small, finite stash of coins that he just slowly dipped into over the decades.
Makes total sense.
But, logic doesn't birth legends.
No, it definitely doesn't.
Legends are born in an informational vacuum. And because the hermit isolated himself so completely, he provided zero context for where that gold came from.
He just became this blank canvas for everyone else's imagination.
Precisely. And then eventually, the hermit passes away.
Right. And because he never explained his wealth to anyone while he was actually alive, he takes whatever the truth was straight to the grave with him.
So the vacuum is permanently sealed.
And human greed is incredibly efficient at filling a vacuum, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The moment news of his death spread around the region, people just descended on his property.
According to sources, locals completely scoured his cabin.
Yeah, they literally tore it apart board by board.
Just completely dismantled the poor guy's home. And they combed through the surrounding wilderness for years afterward.
And what did they find?
They found absolutely nothing.
Zero.
A completely fruitless search.
Right.
Which, realistically, that should have been the end of this story right there.
You would think so, yeah. But the psychological need for a payoff, it doesn't just evaporate because you didn't find a chest of gold on day one.
Right, people are stubborn.
Very. So when the major discovery fails, the human brain begins looking for micro-validations.
Micro-validations? Like what?
Well, the source material notes that every so often, years later, a hiker or a hunter would stumble on something odd out by Indian Lake.
Oh, right. Like an old coin just dropped in the dirt.
Exactly. Or a strangely shaped marker carved into the bark of an old pine tree.
And that's where the story just mutates, right? From a local curiosity into a full-blown myth.
It really does. It escalates so fast.
You go from a guy had some gold to suddenly there are rumors of hidden treasure maps circulating in secret.
Oh, yeah. And then come the dark curses placed on anyone who seeks the gold.
Of course, it's always a curse. And inevitably, the rumors state that the ghost of the hermit himself is out there, actively guarding his stash from beyond the grave.
It's classic folklore escalation. You're likely familiar with confirmation bias, right?
Seeing what you want to see.
Right. But it's rarely seen as aggressively as it is in treasure hunters.
Really? How so?
Well, when your brain has a vested financial interest in a curse being real or a map being real, a random bare scratch on a tree doesn't just look like a map.
Right.
Neurochemically, your brain forces it to be a map.
Wow.
Yeah, the brain actually rewards you with a hit of dopamine for finding a clue, which just reinforces the behavior and completely bypasses any critical thinking.
I mean, I start looking at these quote-unquote clues with a massive side eye, honestly.
Oh, for sure.
Because finding a scratched tree in the Adirondack forest, a forest of literally millions of trees, is like looking up at the sky and finding shapes in the clouds.
That's a fun way to look at it.
Right. Like, oh, look, that cloud looks exactly like a treasure chest. It must be a sign from the universe.
Yeah, I hear you.
I just wonder, at what point does a random dropped coin stop being just a piece of lost change that fell out of some hunter's pocket and magically become undeniable proof of a cursed, ghost-guarded fortune?
Well, comparing it to looking at clouds is maybe a bit reductive, though I get your point.
Fair enough. Why is it different?
Because looking at clouds is just a passive daydream. What we are talking about here is an active neurological override.
An override.
Yeah. Our brains evolved pattern recognition as a strict survival mechanism, right?
Okay, yeah.
Out in the wild, assuming a rustling bush is a tiger is what keeps you alive.
Better safe than sorry.
Exactly. But in this treasure hunting scenario, that exact same survival mechanism misfires.
Oh, interesting.
The brain connects completely unrelated data points. So, a dropped coin, a scarred tree, maybe a cool draft of wind, and builds a cohesive, threatening narrative.
Wow. So to the infected mind of a treasure hunter, there is literally no such thing as a coincidence.
Exactly. Every single thing is a sign.
And that psychological need for confirmation just boils over into physical obsession.
It really does.
Which is exactly what happened when the whispers of the 1800s turned into the organized fanaticism of the 1930s.
Ah, yes. The 1930s.
Yeah, we are moving forward in the timeline here, and the rumors have been stewing for decades at this point, just getting wilder and wilder.
And the text details a highly specific, super dramatic climax to the physical hunt for the gold during this era.
That's like something out of a movie.
Yeah.
A group of organized treasure hunters in the 1930s honestly believed they had finally cracked the code.
And you really have to factor in the era here. The 1930s means the Great Depression.
Right, which changes the stakes entirely.
Completely. The desperation for a financial miracle was at an all-time high across the country.
So a lost cache of gold wasn't just some fun weekend adventure for these guys.
No, it was potential salvation. It was life-changing money.
And they swore they were close. They'd gathered up all these old supposed clues, pieced together their makeshift maps, and hiked out to a highly remote location in the woods.
Deep in the wilderness.
Yeah. And they started to dig.
Right. So according to the legend, the hunters are digging deep into the earth, and suddenly their shovels hit something solid, something metal.
The clank. Literally, the sound every single treasure hunter dreams of hearing.
Exactly. But the very second that metal sound rings out, the environment seemingly intervenes.
It's so crazy.
A sudden, unimaginably violent storm erupts over them right out of nowhere.
We're talking torrential, blinding, pouring rain.
Just a deluge.
Ground shaking, lightning strikes all around them, and the winds are howling so fiercely that massive old-growth trees are snapping in half and crashing down all around their digging site.
It was essentially a localized natural disaster.
Yeah, and the hunters completely panicked. They abandoned their shovels, their tools, everything, and just fled.
The sources actually say they barely escaped the woods with their lives that night.
But they do survive the night. And the sun comes up the next morning.
Right. The storm passes.
They regroup, probably catching their breath, and they hike back out to the remote spot to claim whatever metal box they hit with their shovels.
Because of course they go back.
Obviously. But when they arrive at the coordinates, or the 1930s compass equivalent of coordinates, the area looks completely different.
Entirely unrecognizable.
What's fascinating here is how this specific event functions within the architecture of the myth itself.
It's a huge turning point.
We kind of have to view this 1930s storm as a powerful metaphor, right?
Absolutely. The storm represents the untamable nature of the wilderness itself.
Because in folklore, nature is rarely just passive.
No, it always has a will of its own. By having the landscape shift and become unrecognizable the very next day, the story provides this completely foolproof explanation for why the gold hasn't been found.
Right. The treasure wasn't just lost, it was actively hidden by the earth.
It's a brilliant narrative device to keep the mystery alive.
It really is. I've got to call a timeout here, though, because when I read this part of the source material, I immediately thought of an Indiana Jones movie.
Oh, totally.
You know the scene, Indy finally touches the golden idol, and instantly the cave starts collapsing, the boulders start rolling, the lightning flashes.
It's a very cinematic sequence of events.
It feels just a little too perfectly timed, doesn't it?
I get that, yeah.
Like, were they actually digging up a metal chest of gold? Or did a standard, terrifying Adirondack flash storm just happen to roll in right while they were digging?
It definitely sounds scripted to our modern ears, certainly.
Yeah.
But you do have to factor in the hyper-localized microclimates of the Adirondacks, though.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, flash derechoes, which are rapid, incredibly violent windstorms, are a real meteorological phenomenon up there.
Oh, wow.
So while it feels like Hollywood magic, the Earth actually sometimes fight back in a very sudden, aggressive way.
I mean, if you've ever been in a deep forest during a severe lightning storm, it is pure primal terror.
It really is.
So did that terror just induce a collective panic, making them completely lose their bearings?
That's a very strong possibility.
Did their traumatized brains just imagine the forest had literally moved overnight, when in reality they were just lost the next day?
That actually brings us to the cognitive science of extreme stress.
Okay, lay it on me.
So, in a state of primal terror, the brain's amygdala essentially hijacks your entire nervous system.
Right, the fight or flight response.
Exactly. It triggers a massive flood of cortisol, which is great for running away fast, but it's terrible for memory.
Interesting.
Yeah, that cortisol surge practically shuts down the hippocampus, which acts as the brain's GPS and spatial mapping system.
Oh, wow. So they couldn't form the memories of where they were.
Right. It isn't just that they got turned around in the dark. Their brains temporarily lost the ability to encode spatial relationships entirely.
That is wild.
So when they returned the next day, the landscape didn't just look different because a few trees fell down. It looked unrecognizable because their mental map of the area had been chemically wiped during the panic.
That dramatically alters how I view that whole story.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't a magic shifting forest. It was a neurological collapse of spatial awareness.
Exactly. But, the historical and scientific truth kind of matters less than the cultural impact of the event anyway. That dramatic failure in the 1930s essentially closes the book on the physical hunt. It permanently cements the gold as just out of reach.
Which perfectly shifts our entire deep dive today from a historical treasure hunt to an exploration of why this legend actually survives in the modern day.
Right, because it's still very much alive.
It is.
Yeah.
The text notes that even today, people visiting the area, places like the Alpine Homestead or driving out toward Indian Lake, they still know this story.
They pass it down.
Yeah. They hike into those exact same woods, they sit by the water, and they let their imaginations run completely wild, keeping one eye on the dirt, just looking for that little glint of gold.
And the source outlines two competing modern theories that people still debate today regarding the treasure's ultimate fate.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first is kind of the romantic adventurer angle, the idea that the gold is still physically out there, buried under a century of pine needles, just waiting for the right person to find it.
Like the one person whose heart is pure enough to bypass the hermit's curse.
Exactly, that classic folklore trope.
Okay, and what's the second theory?
The second theory is far more philosophical. It suggests that the gold was never meant to be found at all.
Wait, really?
Yeah, the idea is that the rumor of the treasure was actually the hermit's brilliant, intentional way of keeping the wilderness wild.
Oh, that's interesting.
The text actually wraps this up by stating that the real treasure is the story itself.
Ah, I see.
And we can actually look at this through the lens of the Zeigarnik effect.
The Zeigarnik effect. What is that?
In psychology, this dictates that people remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks much better than completed ones.
Oh, sure. Like a cliffhanger.
Exactly. The human brain hates open loops. So an unsolved mystery preserves the magic and the allure of a region far better than a solved one ever could.
That makes total sense.
By remaining undiscovered, the legend itself acts as a guardian of the Adirondack woods. It forces people to look at the trees, the rocks, and the streams with a sense of wonder and reverence.
I mean, I really marvel at the idea of this quiet hermit pulling off the ultimate posthumous PR stunt for environmental conservation.
It would be pretty amazing.
Right. Starting a rumor about gold so people will respect the trees for the next 100 years is just low-key genius if it was intentional.
It really is.
But I have to playfully reject the incredibly sentimental, the real treasure is the story trope here.
Oh, you're not buying it.
Not entirely. I want to look right at you, the listener, and ask the really tough question. Does human nature really accept that the story is the treasure?
You think we have ulterior motives.
I do. I mean, do we all secretly, deep down in our lizard brains, just want the cash?
Well, we are meaning-making creatures, absolutely, but we are also highly motivated by material reward.
Exactly.
So yes, we want the gold.
I feel like the legend acts like a psychological money laundering scheme for human greed.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. We get to pursue the cash, we get to go out into the woods with our metal detectors, but we wash the guilt away by calling it a historical preservation project.
Right, yeah.
We love the story because it gives us permission to look for the money without feeling like greedy prospectors.
The legend absolutely allows us to participate in a highly romanticized version of greed. We tell ourselves we aren't destroying the forest for profit, we are simply solving a historical puzzle.
Exactly. We're just innocent history buffs who happen to be carrying massive shovels.
Just in case.
Just in case. Well, let's summarize the wild journey we've been on during this deep dive today.
It's been quite a ride.
It really has. We started in the harsh, completely isolated reality of the late 1800s with a quiet hermit who was simply trying to live his life in a brutal winter landscape.
A guy who just occasionally injected impossible wealth into a barter economy.
Right. And we observed how his death created this massive informational vacuum that locals quickly filled with wild rumors of curses, ghosts, and secret maps.
All driven by the powerful neurochemistry of confirmation bias.
Yep. Then we examine the climax in the 1930s during the desperation of the Great Depression, where an intense flash storm collided with sheer human panic.
Where that surge of cortisol shut down the treasure hunter's spatial memory.
Exactly, creating a cinematic tale of the forest literally fighting back to protect its secrets.
And finally, we ended up in the modern day, where the myth survives as a guardian of the woods.
Utilizing that Zygarnik effect to keep the magic of the Adirondacks alive for every single hiker who visits Indian Lake today.
It really just demonstrates how a simple fact like, literally just a few gold coins, can be completely shaped by time, environment, and human psychology into an immortal piece of folklore.
It really does. And as we wrap up this deep dive today, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over.
I love this part.
We've talked a lot about the greed of the treasure hunters in the 1930s, but imagine you are hiking out there tomorrow.
Just a normal hike.
Just a normal hike. You are a modern person with modern sensibilities. You are walking out by Indian Lake, you trip over an old route, and you look down in the dirt.
And there it is.
There it is, the hermit's cache. Real, undeniable gold coins just sitting there. You are entirely alone. What do you do?
It's a tough call.
If a hiker actually did stumble upon the hermit's gold today, would they even tell anyone? Or would they look at the coins, realize that destroying a 150-year-old local legend is a crime far worse than stealing, and choose to bury the metal right back in the dirt so the magic of the Adirondacks can live on?
I'd like to think they'd bury it.
Me too. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We loved exploring this with you, and we'll be waiting right here, ready to unpack the next great story, whenever you're ready. See you next time.